You know, for as bad as I thought 2001 was in the history and the annals of the WWF, 2002 really wasn't that bad of a year. In fact, it was a pretty good year, other than the name change from WWF to WWE, what have you. But you had a lot of things go on in 2002. You had the beginning of the brand split, so you were going to have two unique separate shows, and it was a time where there was a really deep, really talented roster. You had Bischoff working on one side creatively, you had Heyman working on the other side creatively. You know, it was a good year, and sometimes shows just really work. The matches do what they need to do. All the matches end up delivering. The flow of a show works. The structure of the show works. And you really feel like, wow, man, this is what a great professional wrestling pay per view should feel like. And it frustrates me sometimes when I see people that review, let's say, like ROH pay per views or TNA pay per views or even today's WWE pay per views, and they say they're great and they're outstanding. And I say, man, are you that moronic? Or have our standards as professional wrestling fans been dropped to these low levels in 2014? I mean, seriously. I look at SummerSlam 2002 and I say, this is what a great professional wrestling pay per view should look like. The funny thing is this might not even have been the best pay-per-view for the WWF in 2002 and even the best of the big four pay-per-views in 2002 because Survivor Series 2002 in Madison Square Garden was a kick-ass show to say the very least. You could probably have a great debate in the comments whether SummerSlam '02 or Survivor Series '02 was the better show. But this show here rocks. This show kicks ass. This is one of the truly great SummerSlams of all time, in my opinion. Just about everything worked. Just about every match really delivered. You had, a new beginning, if you will, so to speak. And I'll talk about that as we go along. But you open up right away with Kurt Angle and Rey Mysterio. Okay, you probably look at those two participants and say, you're going to find a way to have a good curtain jerker match. And that's exactly what this was. A nice kind of spotlight match for Rey Mysterio, who had just recently come into the fold. Here he is going against a main eventer and a former multiple-time world champion in Kurt Angle. This match really worked. It was a great way to introduce Rey Mysterio. Even though he didn't win here, this is an example of where he was elevated by working with an angle. It worked. The next match, even better. Ric Flair versus Chris Jericho. Outstanding stuff. Another really good match on the undercard on a show full of really good matches on the undercard. And here you go. You're reestablishing Ric Flair, at the same point in time. I don't think Jericho's hurt that much by this because he's losing to Ric Flair even if it's by submission, and this match was really, really good. This match kicked some ass. As did the next match, Edge beating Eddie Guerrero. Think about this. Your first three matches on this card were Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio, Ric Flair versus Chris Jericho, Edge defeating Eddie Guerrero. And, these matches were pretty much all clean. You had two submission victories and a regular victory. Not a lot of cheating, no DQs, no countouts. And you look at the talent involved. 6 Hall of Famers, Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio, Ric Flair, Chris Jericho, Edge, Eddie Guerrero. You would hope you would get it right. And by God, the WWE did here, and these guys got it right. And it really, really set the table nicely for the rest of the show. Even the tag team title match between the Un-Americans and Book Dust, this was solid. The funny thing is it was probably, unless you talk about Undertaker Test, this was probably the worst match of the night. But this would be a good, solid match on just about any other SummerSlam card, just like Undertaker Test. At least that match did what it was supposed to do, did what it needed to do, even though I was never a fan of this gimmick of The Undertaker. That match was okay. Not every match needed to kick ass. It's just most of them on this show did kick ass in their own ways. You look at Rob Van Dam versus Chris Benoit in their singles match for the IC title. The shameful thing about this is another really good match on this show that pretty much doesn't exist in the history of the WWE anymore. That's sad and that's tragic. So all of this good stuff was happening, and we didn't even get to the two featured matches, the two matches that really mattered the most, the two matches that really everybody was excited about when it came to this show. So your undercard was absolutely tremendous. The mid-card of this pay-per-view was absolutely tremendous. Now it's to nut cutting time. The two big matches that you've built this summer spectacular on the back of. Now the pressure's on them to deliver, and boy, did they deliver in a big way. Shawn Michaels, Triple H, the unsanctioned street fight, easily one of the 10 best SummerSlam matches of all time. Maybe number 5, and some may argue number 1, and you won't get a whole lot of argument from me. This was incredible. The story leading into it was really damn good. Very, very damn good. Unfortunately, I didn't realize they were still going to basically be feuding with each other a year and a half later. But at this time, this was outstanding. Here's two people that we all know were friends. They have years of history together. Triple H turns his back on Shawn Michaels. Here's Shawn Michaels trying to come back after being gone from the WWF, WWE for 4.5 years. Does he still have it? Can he still be the showstopper, the icon, the main event? Can he be all of those things? Well, we found out in this match, that's for damn sure. This match was outstanding. Outstanding. It is amazing to me to this day how a guy who hadn't wrestled a serious match in 4.5 years, a guy who hadn't wrestled a major match on a big stage like this in 4.5 years, could come out and basically not miss a beat. When you talk about the truly great in-ring workers of all time, this is the type of stuff that points to me like Shawn Michaels is at the creme de la creme, the very top of the top when it comes to those aspects. And Triple H at this time, this is when, in my opinion, he was at the peak of his power, the height of his glory, and he was outstanding here too. Man, this works so well. You've got Shawn Michaels as a face, which, in this case, the way it was done worked very well. Triple H as a heel always works better, in my opinion. Fucking kick-ass match, and that wasn't even the main event. And you know what's funny is that maybe this match should have main evented, but it was the right decision in this particular case to not main event it, because you still had the main event for the WWE Undisputed Championship. Here comes Brock Lesnar versus The Rock. This was that special attraction match. This was that kind of changing of the guard, that passing of the torch match that was ultimately the single drawing card, the ultimate drawing card, along with Michaels and Triple H in their unsanctioned street fight. This was the match of matches for this show. This was the one I think that most everybody was chomping at the bit to see. Now, granted, keep in mind at this time, most people I think knew that The Rock was going to leave for a period of time. The Rock was going to go film another movie, that this was going to be Brock's time. And it's amazing how much the crowd was behind Brock Lesnar heading into this, and how much the crowd wanted Brock Lesnar to win this. You could even hear it during this freaking match. Here's The Rock, arguably the most over babyface in your freaking company. The most over babyface in your freaking company. And he's getting booed, and the crowd's cheering on him, cheering against him in favor of freaking Brock Lesnar. And it's always been interesting to me that, I get this stigma of being a guy that loves the big muscle heads and this and that, which I dispute that notion, and I think that notion is completely ridiculous. But I've always found it fascinating that I never was really a Brock Lesnar guy. I never really got him. I never really liked him very much. And maybe I was in the extreme minority here, but deep down, I was hoping Brock Lesnar wasn't going to win the belt at SummerSlam 2002. I thought this guy was a lot of hype. I thought this guy was a lot of just having the machine behind him, and I didn't think he was ready, and I didn't think he was going to make a very good world champion. I just didn't. And I find it interesting now that in 2014, a lot of those same fans 12 years ago that were chomping at the bit and itching to scratch this whole new notion of a new guy at the top and Brock Lesnar, now they sit there and say Roman Reigns isn't ready. This guy's not ready. That guy's not ready. Well, sometimes you have to strike while the iron is hot. And in the case of Brock Lesnar, since he had debuted the night after WrestleMania 18, he was on that rocket ship trajectory. They were clearly going with Brock Lesnar, and you knew it, and you understood it. And I still, to this day, understand at the time why they went with this. Here was a guy that fit the WWE look. He had fucking Paul Heyman associated with him, and he had a legit amateur badass background too. He was one of those unique type of prospects that you just don't see every day in the WWE or in wrestling as a whole. And this match really worked. It's not nearly the classic that is Shawn Michaels and Triple H is, but it did what it needed to do. The Rock did just enough to establish that Brock Lesnar was going to be the future of the company. The Rock did just enough to establish that Brock Lesnar deserved to be the WWE Undisputed Champion. The Rock did just enough, in my opinion, to make Brock Lesnar look just good enough to where you actually believe that he deserved to be the guy at the top and he was going to be the future of the company. At that time, you thought potentially for the next decade, if not more. This match really worked. It was a great way to finish off the show. Here's something kind of old school in a way with Shawn Michaels and Triple H. You've got all this other good stuff on the show. And then here's this passing of the torch, the start of a new generation. Now that Austin's gone, The Rock is going to be gone. We all know it eventually to do movies full time. Where's that next great star coming from? Here's that next great star shooting at you like a supernova. And again, it was the perfect way to end this, what I thought was outstanding SummerSlam show. Easily one of the 5 best SummerSlams of all time, arguably to me, one of the 3 best. This show kicked ass. This show really delivered. If you want to see a really good SummerSlam and you want to see how good a SummerSlam can be, this is a show that you must, and I emphasize again, must go back and watch. Outstanding.